today, but just so everyone knows who's in the room, want to go around and tell us who you are and where you are.
Sure. So my name is Kathy Schuster. I work in the Office of Finance, and my team coordinates the financial aid preview meetings. So finances are near and dear to my heart.
Yay,
So
Kathy.
that's why.
Kathy does a lot for our office too.
Oh, thank you.
I'm Molly Stern, and I work in the Learning Abroad Center as well, and I am an enrollment specialist.
Oh, you're the new enrollment specialist?
I am.
Hey.
I'm Jen Johnson. I am also in Learning Abroad Center and Associate Program Director, and I work with the Global Seminars and Instructional Programs.
Cool.
I am Jill Reister, and I'm in a split position between the Learning Abroad Center and CFAN's Office of International Programs.
So you work with Belcourt?
I do, yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
I've known Mark since he had hair.
Since he had hair. No, I've seen pictures of him from like
Yeah.
15, 20 years ago.
Yeah. I came into the U as a freshman in 1996, and he was my advisor.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
Very
which is
cool.
hilarious.
I'll be working with this Ecuador program. So.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
My name's Laura DuPont Jarrett. I work for CFANS. I work with our Student Services Unit, and while we have interim leadership of the international programs, I'm also helping support those students. I've co-taught with Mark the last 3 years, so I know Mark
Cool.
well also.
I'm Paul Edwards. I'm at the university, and I work in one of the multicultural support student centers. And I'm the liaison with the Learning Abroad Center for that. And so we work with this group of students a lot.
Oh, okay.
I'm Ben Tully. I'm an associate program director in the Learning Abroad Center, and I'm running the camera.
And he's an AV guy.
I double as an AV specialist.
I'm the graphic designer for Trio as well. So.
If I can give one brief update too, just I forgot, I am trying a new thing of not taking my laptop all over campus, but taking some small notes and email to myself. So if it looks like I'm texting, I'm not. I'm taking notes on all the fabulous things you're telling us.
Sure.
Cool.
Sure.
I'm Nate Whitaker. What do you want to know about me? I've worked for Trio Student Support Services on campus for the better part of 15 years, I think. I'll explain all about Trio for those who aren't familiar with our program and what we do. I also teach one of the global seminars during winter break to South Africa, and this past January was my 5th iteration of that program. And now I'm starting an after-school program in South Africa, so we're kind of redeveloping the course to try to do something more embedded. But who knows? Lindsay and I have yet to get coffee.
Sure, we gotta do that.
We'll see.
Forgotten.
My history with South Africa is I lived there during the sort of reconciliation era in the early 2000s, late 1990s, and worked with a number of youth programs there. Spent about 4 years of my life there, and just became very familiar with the communities and the people, and have family there, and so that's why it made sense for me to teach these global seminars there. And my global seminars is around the idea of healing and reconciliation. My background's in social justice education and youth development, so it fits relatively well. Yeah, so first generation low income students and learning abroad. Here's some of the stuff that I will try to cover. I always put way more in these things than I need to, and then like the Learning Abroad Center's like, dude, can you shrink it down? And I go, yeah, I'll shrink it down, and then I don't. But I'll talk about kind of Trio, and the only reason I want to talk about Trio is because Trio is the largest population of low income first gen students on our campus. And obviously there's a lot of other students on campus that would fit this profile, but Trio specifically works directly with this student population. Bit about the demographics of our program, who's going abroad, significance of learning abroad for these low-income first-gen students, barriers and some solutions, and I'll try to finish off if I can on how I've been successful in recruiting this student population to go on my course. There's been a lot, if you go out there and do the research, there's a lot of information out there about students of color studying abroad, but there's very, very, very little on low-income students, first-gen students studying abroad. It's very difficult to find, and a lot of it tends to be in the narrative of the middle class, where it's like, tell students to borrow more money. But with the average family income for our students is $24,000 a year for a family of 5. A lot of their financial aid goes to family. So just borrowing more money and those types of ideas don't really fit their lived experiences and things like that. So it's very difficult to find good information on low-income first-gen students studying abroad. I've been looking for 5 years and I can barely find anything that's very helpful. So that's where I started to get interested in this. And also when I first taught my global seminar the first year, because I work in TRIO, I had about 30 or I think I had 120 applications the first year I did the program. About 40 of them were TRIO students, and they all dropped out of the process except 2. And I started to ask why. And we came to conclusions about $400 confirmation fees and upfront costs and all these different types of things. So this is what really sparked my interest in looking deeper into some of these issues. And by the way, sorry, interrupt me if you have questions. Just keep it low key. TRIO, a little bit about TRIO. TRIO is the longest running civil rights access education program in the country. It came out of the 1964 Economic Opportunity Act and the 1965 Higher Education Act. It's a federal program. All money for our program comes directly from the U.S. Department of Education. Back in the 1960s, and during the civil rights movement, President Johnson and before him Kennedy had a deep interest in poverty in America. It's one of the times in our history, in American history, where federal dollars were being spent on poverty issues for the first time, and the poverty sort of level dropped by about 30% in the 1960s due to programming that was occurring. One of the big things during the Economic Opportunity Act was access to education. And so after the Economic Opportunity Act was passed in 1964 and 1965, they passed the Higher Education Act. And the Higher Education Act included a number of things, but 2 very, very important things. One was financial aid. And I think a lot of people don't know that financial aid literally comes out of civil rights legislation. It was meant to help people who couldn't afford college go to college. And another thing that came out of that same act is TRIO programs. And TRIO programs were meant to be a sister program, if you will, to financial aid, where we were the support team to help students who are underrepresented get into college and succeed in college, where financial aid was the financial support side of it. Our relationship is strong or not strong depending on what university you go to, but there's about 2,000 TRIO programs nationwide. In Minnesota, I think we have like 43 TRIO programs or something like that. And it is a pipeline program. There's high school all the way through graduate, or just sort of pre-graduate studies. So I don't know if you've heard of Upward Bound before. That's a TRIO program in the high schools. Education Talent Search is another one. College Possible is not, but the guy who started it was formerly TRIO. It's just that he went to sort of the corporate funding model and things like that. And then in colleges and universities, we have student support services, which I work for. We work with students once they're admitted to the university. And then we also have McNair Scholars, which prepares underrepresented students for postgraduate study. Let's see here. Our population that we serve about 270 students per year. What we do is, a lot has changed because we used to be housed in a general college, but now that we're in the College of Ed and Human Development, what we do is that our office, our TRIO office, Student Support Services, works with the admissions office around actually admitting students. So our students apply to the university, they're denied their first and second choice. And then if they fit our profile, their applications will be sent to us in TRIO. We'll review those, and if we think that we can support that student and they meet federal guidelines for TRIO, we'll admit them to the university. And we do 150 new TRIO students every year. They're with us for 1 year or maybe a year and a half, maybe 2 years until they're admitted into a major. And then once they're in a major, we kind of say bye-bye and we cry and they leave. There are 270 students that we work with actively right now, but there's over 800 TRIO students on campus at any time here at the University of Minnesota, so it's a big population. Federal guidelines say that 2/3 of our students have to be low income and first generation, so they have to have both of those. 1/3 can be low income first gen or have a disability. But if we accept them on the status of disability, that 1/3 has to, 1/3 of those with a disability also have to be low income as well. Students are admitted to the U of M through TRIO. I've kind of already said that. I've already said this as well. We serve students for about 2 years, 1 to 2 years, until they're admitted into a major. 600 TRIO students on campus, that's actually incorrect. It's more about 800 students on campus. The U.S. Department of Ed requires for our grant that we provide academic tutoring and support, advising, financial literacy, financial aid information. We also have to provide graduate school information to our students. What I like to think of ourselves is there's only 3 of us that work in the office, Greg Sawyer, Kirsten Collins, and myself. We're social workers in an advisor position. I mean, that's really why we've been hired. Our background it fits in line more with that than it does just sort of your higher ed. And in fact, a lot of that stuff we don't even get. We have to go to advisor meetings and we're like, we don't even know what you're talking about. APAS exception? I don't know what that is. But we're dealing with housing issues, we're dealing with financial issues, we're dealing with language issues, all that kind of stuff. Here's kind of our profile of last year's incoming group, so the 2015 incoming TRIO students. We had 139. Our goal is 150, but that's becoming more and more difficult every year because as the university raises their admission standards, our pool continues to shrink. So we're having a challenge even getting students into our door. Mostly female, 35% male. Our ACT average is a 20. We're at the university average is a 28.5 this year. So our students are academically underprepared in a big way. CET, what that is part of the 150 that we admit. 50 of them are in what is called CET, which is Commanding English Transitions Program. It's not a hey Greg. It's not an English language learner program. It's not an ESL program. It's academic English, and they get a little bit more support around English as it's used in academics and at the university. And 50 of our students are that. This is great. This is my moral support.
Greetings. Sorry, tree advisor, colleague of Nate's.
If Kirsten was here, you'd have the whole team. So, but I'm just going over the TRIO demographics now. Down below, you have some of our high school rank, and our high school GPA is actually very good. So what's happening is that our students are doing exactly what their high schools are asking them to do, and they're very, very successful in high school, but their ACT scores and things like that are still very low. And we could get into the things around racism in classes and ACTs and high stakes testing and things like that, but they're at under-supported high schools, and English is typically not their first language and a bunch of other dynamics for our students. About 85% of our students are low income, 75% low income and first gen, 94% students of color in our program. TRIO nationwide, interestingly enough, is majority white because it's a poverty initiative. But depending on where your TRIO program is, because we're in a major metropolitan area, most of our students are students of color. Over half are from the urban and first ring suburbs. Then you have the U of M totals there and sort of the total population of what TRIO makes up here at the entire university. So out of all of the low income students on campus, about 5% of those are TRIO. 8% are low income and first gen, and then we make up 17% of the students of color at the University of Minnesota, which is huge. Here you have sort of race ethnicity breakup: 48% Asian, 37% Black, African American, 6% Hispanic, Latino. We only have about 6% white and 1% Indian. 63% of our students are non-native English speakers. Almost half of them were born outside of the United States and have come here and been here for at least 5 years. Typically, they've been here for at least 5 years. So they did graduate from high school in the state of Minnesota, or had their high school experience in Minnesota, in the Twin Cities area. A big majority of our students are living off campus. That's another dynamic. They have things that are going on at home. They're expected to be at home. Family definitely comes first in some of the nuances of our students' culture. And then we have about 50% interested in STEM and health science majors that are very competitive, and typically our students do not get into those majors. But because we're an access point, we are dedicated to still admitting those students and giving them a chance to pursue those degrees. And if they don't, Greg, Kirsten, and myself just work very hard with them around trying to find other meaningful majors and directions on campus. We provide 3 major things. Academic support is one of the first major things that we do. We teach a first-year course that I developed to all of our incoming students. It's not a how to navigate college class. It's a multiple identities and self-authorship class where we talk about racism in higher ed, we talk about classism in higher ed, we talk about the dynamics that they might face. Greg does a big piece on multiple identities and how that shapes their learning, how that shapes how they see themselves. It's a pretty cool class, and this is our 5th year teaching it, and ever since we started teaching it, our retention rates have gone way up. And in fact, last year we had the highest, we love to say this, we had the highest retention rates on campus for first to second year students last year, 98%.
Nice.
Yeah, so we do good work, I like to think. All students in TRIO are also CEHD students, so they do participate in CEHD's first year curriculum. If you're not familiar with that, they have a first year inquiry class, all CEHD students in the fall, and in the spring they have learning communities where they pair 2 courses with a common theme. And the research out there shows that that helps students understand the topics better, but also meet students, get to know faculty. There's a lot of research going on behind that. All of our students take 2 semesters of writing, or at least we ask them to, unless they come in with it being done. So they all take Writing 1201 in the fall and Writing 1301 in the spring. All the Writing 1201 sections are held now for TRIO. Nobody else on campus takes the 1201 anymore. Our CET population also takes the Editing for Writers course in their first semester, where they take papers from the other classes and they work on the academic English of those papers. And we also have integrated learning courses where we pair a 2-credit course with either psychology, chemistry, or biology. So they go to biology, chem, or psych, and then they go to another course once a week with an instructor that not only works on academic skills, but also works on understanding that topic in a deeper way. It's sort of supplemental education. And our TRIO students are also getting the higher grades in those 3 courses as well because of these ILs. It's structured learning time and study time is really what it is. We also work very closely with MK and the Smart Learning Commons and PAL sessions to provide some of the stuff that our grant requires, that this sort of duplication of services. So we have a lot of relationships with others on campus, including disability services and everyone else. Our advising model is our next big kind of thing that we pay attention to. We are highly committed to social justice, not necessarily diversity, but we look at the equity part. I think the university is very excited about diversity and not very excited about equity, because that means giving something up. But we are very much committed to that, and we do a lot of work on campus educating people on social justice issues on campus. We have a much smaller to advisor ratio. I think CLA advisors have upwards of 600 students on their caseload. We have about 120 max. I only have 75 because I do some of the academic programming, but Greg has 110, 120, and Kirsten has 110, 120. We really get to know our students. They become family to us. We know their friends, we know their family, we know their brothers and sisters, and we're always able to see them next day if we need to. We are also specialists and advocates for students in poverty, homelessness, refugee status, language learners, disabilities, and federal financial aid. Kirsten is a trainer for the Minnesota State Federal Financial Aid, or Minnesota State, whatever. She's a guru in financial aid. Greg's background is in counseling. My background is in social justice and youth development. So we've been hired for specific reasons to TRIO, and we have a long history in TRIO, and in fact we're all TRIO ourselves, or were once. We advise all colleges, all majors, because our students just come into CHD, but they transfer out to all these different places. And obviously we provide all these different types of services. Last thing that we do is a lot of leadership development and make sure that our students have the same opportunities as other students on campus. So we have a really robust TRIO student board. A bunch of students get together and they do a whole bunch of different things on campus, and their main thing is to make sure that students who are low income and first gen and have a disability have a voice on campus. They're pretty cool. We do leadership retreats, we do job fairs and study abroad stuff. Our students engage in all different types of leadership. I don't know if I'm...
Yeah, you are. And I kind of like to think of the leadership development for TRIO students as they're kind of cutting their teeth on understanding, about their own styles of leadership development. Sometimes it gets linked with the leadership courses. And then, excuse me, as they start to build their confidence and understand their voice and their cultural capital, then they reach out into other leadership roles, join other student groups and things of that nature. So.
Yeah. And our students are, pardon my French, badass. Our students are really, really cool, and we just really enjoy them. And it's funny because the older I get, the more I love them. So there's something there. Me getting old. I'm getting old. So here's some of the numbers, anyways. Who is learning abroad? 83% white students are studying abroad. African American is very low. The rest of it is very low. This is some of the knowledge that's just sort of known out there right now around particularly students of color. But there is a large racial disparities among students studying abroad. And it's going up for students of color, but maybe not at the rate that it needs to yet.
Yeah, I will say, I was just at the Diversity Abroad conference last week, and BJ was presenting, and our numbers in terms of minority students on campus and minority students abroad are about the same.
Same?
Yeah.
Okay,
so
interesting. Yeah, at the U?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nationally.
Yeah, and I'll talk about some things that we're doing here at the U too that is unique to this population as well. Why is this kind of important, I guess, the significance? There's many challenges for low-income first-gen students, and these are some of the big things that we deal with our office all the time, and it's not just around learning abroad, it's around everything. But there's unwritten cultural norms, folk ways of understanding what needs to be done in higher education and academic culture. They have super complex lives outside of college. And they have a lot of need for community when they get here. They go into a classroom and it's 200 white students in them. And so that can be, and they're coming here and they're competing, with students who have had a more privileged background in terms of their education. The sort of folkways stuff is really big for us. A lot of families don't believe that things like learning abroad are what you're supposed to do in college. You're just supposed to go to class and get a job. And you're supposed to be home taking care of the family and things like that. So often our students who want to study abroad aren't allowed to because family won't let them. There's other things involved too. Some of these families have come from areas that had some had trauma or violence in their own lives, and the thought of their kid leaving is very scary. So these are sort of some of the dynamics of things that we work with. Our students definitely thrive in these sort of non-traditional academic settings with different pedagogies. And so learning abroad for them tends to be a really strong experience where they gain a lot. We see our TRIO students go abroad and come back totally different people. And I know that's true for everyone, but our students, and you can see it take that even a step farther. And things change very quickly for them. But that whole hands-on learning and being there is also significantly important for our students, and they're very successful when they have that type of atmosphere and learning. In our college, they take all of their sort of liberal education prerequisite stuff in PSTL, which is now being closed, and we have a lot to deal with, but that's a different pedagogy that really works for our students. There's a lot of research out there that says it has a profound and lasting change on their self-image, their academic and professional goals, and their attitudes about roles in society. And they also enhance the experience for the more traditional student in very big ways. If you talk to Mark Belcourt, he goes to these Spanish-speaking countries, and it's the TRIO students who become the translator for the course because they speak Spanish. They also are really good at ambiguity. They're really good at navigating different culture and ambiguity. And so even in my class in South Africa, about 40% of them every year have been trio, and they are the ones that just take it on. They are just not afraid. And some of my white students just try to hide in housing the whole time. So they're used to this. They're used to the difference and the diversity, and they do have this great impact on the other learners that go abroad. Researchy type of stuff that I think we probably all know, but existence and diversity in higher ed increases critical thinking and problem-solving skills and creativity for everybody. The more diverse the institution, the research says, the smarter the institution is. The more homogeneous your institution is, the less smart it is in a way. You're not coming into conflict with ideas and culture that make you think beyond what you already know. Increases efforts to address issues relating to oppression and prejudice in higher ed. Our students challenge those ideas. They are a challenge to it by just being here. And so that's also a positive significance of them participating in this thing. And retention, graduation. We all know the outcome of learning abroad. And I think it's, this work that was done by Jerry Fry. You all know Jerry Fry. He's a guru. Students who study abroad are graduating. And that's true for our TRIO students as well. Some of the challenges, Pell Grants and additional scholarships often fall short for our students. It's just simply not enough. The majority of financial aid in the United States is actually given to students who don't need it as much as our student population needs it. That's a national challenge. But also issues that we've had in the past, and the LAC is working on great ideas around this, but those funds are distributed before or after they need it for learning abroad programs. The upfront and in-country costs are extremely difficult for them to get, especially that in-country stuff that financial aid doesn't necessarily cover, things like that. Basic program fees are often unfeasible for our students. We've had a lot of issues around that. And additional expenses for our students is a big issue because remember, 64% of them were not born here. And a lot of them are permanent residents. And when it comes to obtaining visas to study abroad, there's biometric fees, there's visa fees, there's additional expenses to get passports. There's more walls they have to climb to have the experience. And so these things obviously add up, and financially it doesn't necessarily cover it. Need-based scholarships are scarce. Most of the scholarships that are out there are based on students' ability to write really well, and our students, English is their second language, and they're learning their writing skills now. And also bias in the evaluating of who's reading scholarships. Students' mindset might be a negative one towards study abroad. We've run into this, and I kind of already talked about this, but if their home background does not include family members or friends who have been abroad or have had some type of international experience or have had bad experiences in other places in the world. Fear of abroad may relate to an abroad program itself. So a lot of our students have anxiety about who's going to be on the program. Am I going to be the only kid of color on this program? Is the teacher going to understand me and my needs? Is the teacher going to understand what TRIO is and why I'm a part of that program? Those types of things. And then just, sorry, where am I? Second one. Many low-income first-gen students are not cognizant of the short-term and long-term benefits of an education abroad experience. Again, that's that cultural folklore that they come from, thinking that, I don't. This is something that I really should do. The message to them typically is this isn't really that important. We did a needs analysis 5 years ago or something like that with our TRIO students, and 95% of them said study abroad wasn't for them. So they just don't come to the university thinking that this is something that they should do. So in the TRIO office, we're always like, no, you will do. So they're like, me, really? low-income students low-income first-gen students have to focus on day-to-day things that poverty requires. They have other challenges other than thinking about how to navigate all these processes and things on campus to do these types of things. Food, shelter, safety is a big thing for our students. Yes.
Do you get to talk with the students after they come back from going abroad?
Sorry, say it
Do you
again.
get to speak with the students after they come back from their experience abroad?
Yeah.
Do they ever, what are the biggest challenges that they're facing while on the programs?
While on the programs,
Yeah.
well, I can only speak to my program, and I think this has a lot to do with just being a underrepresented student on campus. But they have a very different experience in my course than more privileged students. That has a lot to do with my curriculum. I have a social justice curriculum, and my students of color and my low-income students and my first-gen students are angry. And my white students are going through a process of guilt and white privilege, and you know what I mean. But students that go on other programs, the financial piece is big, the family piece is huge. Going away for a whole semester for a lot of our students is just not going to happen. So that's why the short-term stuff works really well for our students, and we try to push that. So the global seminar model is really positive. When they're abroad, they're taking it on like troopers. They're just super awesome abroad. They're just not worried about anything. I mean, it's amazing to watch them, and they're not going through the same growing pains. They don't have an interest in going out to the bars and drinking. They have an interest in going to meet people and culture and learn languages and stuff. They just don't have a whole different paradigm of the experience itself in a lot of ways. That's their background, you know. So.
Nate, can I just jump in here?
Yeah.
One of the things that happens with us when we're meeting with students about financial aid is, we're sitting with them one-on-one for this half-hour meeting, and of course, when you're talking about money, it's pretty personal. So then for them to say, well, I just don't quite know, how to do this or what my steps are to do next. We get a lot of those questions, and so we refer to those travel resources that other people might just say, well, I've had a passport my whole life.
Right.
And so the help of navigating that, because sometimes they don't know just where to start with some of those basic things, and so that's a big piece.
Some of them have never been on a plane since they were infants, coming here for the first time. I mean, the vast majority of them haven't left Minnesota, and so the navigation of all the little things that need to be done to do something like this is quite huge. And actually, what are we called? What's our group called?
Financial barriers.
Financial Barriers Group in the LAC. The whole travel, go pack and fly kind of came out of some of that. What works for our TRIO students works for all students, and they can go to that site and, like Kathy said, get information that they need on how to do a lot of this stuff. And we're there too for them. So, I talked about this folk ways of academic culture. Families don't prioritize external experiences, so to speak. This is just not on mom and dad's radar, and they didn't go to college, so they don't understand how leadership development and study abroad and some of these things are a part of the experience. The narrative that they come from is not that this is a 4-year experience of changing your life and changing who you are as a person. It's solely go to class and go home. Often.
Totally have this. I'm sorry for being late and then interrupting by leaving early, but I have another group to go.
There goes my.
We're glad you were here. Thanks for
Wow.
stopping
I
by.
rescued Larry.
Thanks for coming, Greg. Moral support.
Trio.
Well, at least you got another face of another TRIO employee, so yeah. Greg knows his stuff. Still a gap in educational opportunity, resource, and knowledge. The institution, this is important to me, that the institution has not altered how they make decisions and teach courses that meet the needs of underrepresented students. So again, they're just this as Kathy said, navigating all of these things can be a challenge. Collective culture is a big thing. I've mentioned this. Family comes first for almost all of our students. So we're working on helping students change that narrative a little bit. But we appreciate this about them as well. It just makes learning abroad sometimes of a challenge. And I already talked about the 95%. Okay. Solutions, yay! this is just a laundry list of things that have been researched and we know that works, and things that we're trying here at the U that appear to be working. Ever since this sort of, I got really angry about this issue 5 years ago and we started talking about it on this campus, huge changes are happening. And even just the narrative in our office is so different because of people's hard work. Kathy's hard work and Kim Hornbergen's hard work and everybody who's been involved in this. It's starting to change the narrative, and our students are starting to go abroad. Incoming faculty of color to be hired as learning abroad program leaders and diversified learning abroad center staff. That's huge. Our students will not select programs because of their academic background or their career aspirations. They will pick programs because of its title and who's teaching it, often. So this is very big. If they see a person of color teaching the program, they want to go on that program. They go on Mark Belcourt's program. He's Native American. That excites them. They go on my program because they know me, and they know me as like an angry white guy, social justice. But the curriculum and the destination are big. So Africa is very cool for our TRIO students. For a lot of them, it's going back home. Yeah.
Also location?
Location.
Is that what you mean?
And title
The country?
as well, but location is huge. They're not
Location's often in the title. So
yeah. They're not very interested in Europe, but they're heavily interested in Southeast Asia. I mean, they fill the Thailand programs. Because a huge population are Hmong, and they want to go to Thailand. They want to go to Africa. They want to go to South America. So that's big. But they also want to go with those instructors of color. There's a that trust piece is there and doesn't have to be built. One of my jobs as a white guy in TRIO is that I spend a lot of time trying to build trust first, and that's on me to do. But until that trust is built, they didn't want to go on program with me because I could just be another one that says I get it and don't get it. So. Recruit student peer advisors who are from low-income first-gen backgrounds that have successfully gone abroad. The reason my class fills up with this student population now is because my former students who went on it sell it. I don't even do anything anymore. Like literally, I don't even do anything. There's just this phone game going on around my program now where all of my TRIO students or my students of color are just like, you gotta go on this program. You gotta go on this program. It's nice. I had to work on it a lot the first year, but now it's just kind of selling itself. So them talking to each other about the experience is the way to go. So if you find these students and you want more of them on the program, they're the ones to talk about the experience. Form an ongoing advisory board of appropriate faculty and staff low-income barriers group. Is that the name of our group?
Yeah,
Financial barriers. I gotta change that. So Kim and Learning Abroad Center created an on-campus group that I belong to and Kathy's in, and we talk about these issues specifically to low-income first-gen challenges. And this is a group that created the Bridging Loan program and also the Pack and Fly website. And I don't know what we're up to next, but I'm super excited about it. Yeah, it'll be good. I've been just, if you guys know me, you know me as a serious progressive activist, and I yell at this campus all the time and I get trouble for it all the time. But I am not engaged in most diversity efforts on this campus because I very much think that they're neoliberal, and the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over with expecting different results. But there have been results in this group. And people have taken some pretty big risks, especially Learning Abroad Center and forking up funds before these students go. And those are the types of things, like we have to give something up that needs to happen, that I think the LAC has done around this barriers group. And I'm very proud of that group and what the people have been willing to do, even if they didn't understand the needs. They just kind of said, let's try it. So it's been really, really cool.
Also, in relation to the Bridging Loan program, we haven't had anybody default or not be able to pay back the loan that that advance we've given to them. So I think that also is a testament to the support and the advising piece around that from your office and financial aid and things like
Yeah.
that. So
And if you borrow our students $5, they pay it back. I mean, it's just that they come from that culture that, you know, I grew up low income and I pay it back too. I mean, maybe there's something about growing up low income where you're like, you have to pay it back. I don't know. Where are we here? Encourage faculty to diversify program destinations, including non-Western locations and things like that. That tends to be a big one. Kathy, do you see that with our students?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and whenever we see someone for next class, we say, if you like this, you know, because we don't want them to proceed if they don't like what they hear, but we say, this one fills up fast. I mean, it's, like you said, it's a very big deal.
Location
and we
is
see everything.
huge, yeah. And I know that like Kathy, who's teaching the Thailand one, and some of the other folks teaching the Thailand ones, they're just packed with our Hmong students who have like just this awesome experience there. So that's just really cool that they want to go to these sort of non-traditional destinations. At least have one mentor for yourself, an informant, so to speak, in your office to talk about equity issues and review things and decisions that are made. That's one thing that we've done in our TRIO office, and we continue to educate ourselves on issues of privilege and all the stuff that we also have problems with in TRIO. But we do have informants around campus that go, this is what they're talking about, what do you think of this? And we're like, oh, that's scary, and come back and try to find solutions. Consider more need-based scholarships and attention and that issue of writing skills. CEHD has been doing a really good job with this. We're developing more and more need-based stuff, and we're trying to change the way that scholarships are reviewed to keep that English language learner part in mind. And we even have like a new, Mary Ellen Shaw, who does our scholarships in CHD, she even has like a new category based on kind of the strength of the importance of the program to a student. So like a Hmong student who came from a refugee camp in Thailand wanting to go to Thailand would get additional points for that because of the significance of the power of that experience for the student. So those types of things have been cool. Program fee deferment programs. When I talk to other universities, I will tell them about this, and I'll tell them about the bridging loan. The bridging loan has been a huge thing for us. That simple need of our students not having to pay $400 to confirm a program is huge. It's huge, and it's worked. I mean, plain and simple, it's worked. I wish we could get more and more students to apply for it, but the first semester it was like,
Was it 12?
12, and then another one was 21 or something, and it kind of fluctuates.
I think they're over 50 now, aren't they?
I don't want to close
I used to manage it, I don't anymore.
It's awesome. And it's not just helping our TRIO students, it's helping students like myself who were just at that line and couldn't borrow money or have that $400 to confirm something like this. So those types of ideas are really cool. And the LAC got honorable mention for the McCaskill Award or whatever for it, right? So they're paying attention to it nationally now.
At the diversity conference, I was in a session and somebody piped up and they're like, well, I know the Bavarian Broad Center at Minnesota does this thing, and then the presenters were like, is there anyone from Minnesota there? And then we kind of
Yeah. Like, I am, suckers!
And she was from Oklahoma.
Cool.
You know, so
very cool.
Yeah, people have heard of it and are interested in following that
Yeah.
sort of model.
Yeah.
I was part of a CLEGO conversation for NAFSA a couple weeks ago where it's done online, you can chat, and that was one of the things that came up was the bridging loan. So
It's great. It's had a real impact on our students' ability to study abroad. It's just one of them things that I didn't know that was going to happen that way, but it did. It's been very cool. Scholarship writing workshops. We do this in CHD. We have 2 workshops for all students, really, prior to the deadlines that occur for our college and for the LAC scholarships. And our whole advising team is in on the effort. And Kathy goes to every single one of those and does a you can afford study abroad type of thing. That really speaks not just to our TRIO students that are there, but to all students that are there. And the students bring a draft, and the advisors sit down with them literally one-on-one and just works out their writing and their essays for scholarships, and it's had a significant impact as well. our scholarships that students have received either from the LAC or other places has gone up since we started doing these. And for our TRIO students, it's been huge because we can do red edits right there with them rather than just saying write it yourself and turn it in. Access and availability to short-term programs. I covered this, right? I mean, it's a chance for them to get their feet wet. Family is much more keen to let them go for 3 weeks than they are for a semester or a year. So that's cool. Warm referrals and trust building. Our students don't go to something because there's a flyer. That's not the type of cultural capital that they hold. They are a communal, they come from sort of communal communities or whatever. And often we just need to invite them or tell them that we're going to be there or things like that. And it's that relationship piece that works much better than just saying, oh, did you see that flyer? You should go to that. They're not likely to go to that. Be sure both students and parents are well informed about the sort of positive, the applicability of students' financial aid package to study abroad. And let them know that there's special funding out there for them. In CHD, we have the GDES scholarship, which is a very generous amount of money that's been given to our college by an unknown donor. And the donor wants all of that $75,000 a year to go to low-income first-gen students, and it pays 100% for their study abroad experience. It's really neat, and so we let our students know that that's out there. We let their families know that that's something that's out there as well. Develop information materials specifically geared towards low-income first-gen students, not just around scholarships, but about the navigating of the learning abroad process. So we send all of our students to the Pack and Fly website. It makes things a little less scary to a lot of them. Investigate options in your college or department to provide low-income first-gen student support for study abroad through both new and already existing sources of funding. So for example, if there are sort of 10 low-income first-gen scholarships available through the college office or another funding unit, can one scholarship be set aside for study abroad, so to speak, which we have done in our college. Scholarship and reserve funds for additional pre-departure and in-country costs are greatly needed. This is a big issue with us. So the bridging loan has helped our students overcome one barrier, but more barriers exist financially where they need that money in pocket when they get on that plane. And so we have, in TRIO specifically, we have 2 scholarship funds, one the Harvey Carlson Fund and the Bruce and Sharon Shelsky Fund, that we can sort of discretionarily use. And we sometimes will dig into that for experiences like that, so they have some money in their pocket before they get on a flight. But it's a big need.
If I could just jump in here too, one of the things that we do in our meetings as we're looking at the whole picture is if a student, let's say they're going abroad, winter break, so their aid won't disperse until spring, if they have eligibility for a loan that they would have taken out for spring when they're abroad, but we can put it into fall, we'll do that. So maybe we'll get rid of a work study award, or they just didn't take out their loan already. And we look for creative ways to ease some of those burdens. So if you're ever talking with a student who hasn't come in to meet with us, they should meet with us.
Mm-hmm. And also, like, in terms of the Learning Abroad Center fee or budget outline, what is it? What's
Cost of participation.
the
Document?
the document, the
Yeah.
fee document, or the
Cost
budget?
of participation is what we call it.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
We tend to try to reach, in the TRIO office, if we have a student that's particularly interested in a certain program, we'll often try to reach out to that faculty member too and find out how much of that cost is really a necessity. Because I know that on the LAC side, you kind of have to have a minimum standard of what you need in pocket. It doesn't make sense not to have that. But for example, my South Africa one, we brought it way down, but I still think it's $1,000 or something like that. What do you call that second box?
Additional
Estimated.
estimated expenses.
Yes, additional expenses or whatever, estimated.
Yeah.
The reality is that if I have a student with $450 in their pocket when they go, then they're fine. They can make it work. I want to be careful, and I want to be careful about if anything happens and they have some additional costs and things like that. But I put that on me in a lot of ways, just so they can have that experience. So Here's some nice quotes. If you want more representative group, you have to work hard to get it, not just for a little while. You have to sustain the investment. I think that's very true. This is about building relationships with certain students on campus to make sure that they have these opportunities. Someone asked, I've been on this panel for CHD, and they're like, how do you get all these students? And like, they asked me, how do I get more students on my course that are underrepresented or students of color? And I put it back on them and say, what do you need to do to make sure that they go? And this is kind of the piece on recruiting these students. I've been humbly very, very successful. On my 5 global seminars, I think about 60% were students of color. Upwards of near 50% were low income first gen. So I have a very, very diverse group every year that I've done it. And I've always filled, so 25 students every year. And this is the social justice side of me, but it works for me. Check your privilege. It's easy to be outraged at the lacking prospect of learning abroad for underrepresented students, but it's difficult to see how we're part of the problem. So I have to remind myself this all the time. What am I doing? What narrative am I using? Am I using that middle class narrative and saying, well, just borrow more money? Or am I looking for real solutions for the students? Mindful of the 5 F's, I kind of like this. Family, faculty, finances, fear, and friends. So whenever I'm talking to students, I kind of will track all of these things and kind of get a test of where they're at with these things. What does mom and dad think about this? You know, are you worried about the faculty person teaching it? Have you ever met them? Those types of things. And we kind of just walk through these things and try to put some of this to rest. Reinforce the cultural capital that they do have. And I tell all of our TRIO students this: you guys are the rock star on these programs. You can speak Thai, you can speak Spanish, you grew up in diverse neighborhoods, you come from these communities. This is a cakewalk to you, you know. And for my South Africa course, I'm like, I need you on this course, because it's not the same dynamic if I were to have 25 white kids who had a lot of money. It's not to mean that it wouldn't be a positive experience for them, but it wouldn't be as challenging for them. Because like I said, in my course specifically, they have 2 different experiences. White kids are dealing with, this idea of white privilege for the first time, some of them, and then, our TRIO students and the students of color are helping them take that walk and go down that path and look at these things in real ways. So it's huge to have them go on these things. I said this: marketing doesn't do a whole lot for our students. They really don't have that cultural capital yet to go get that information and know where to find it and things like that. So the warm referrals, the relationship building. Become an ally in your workplace and invite challenging conversations about learning abroad, American abuses abroad, white savior complex. All of those things for our student population has got them excited about the potential of doing something like learning abroad. So my course is a social justice course, so I talk about the white savior complex, and that's something that they're attracted to because they've had experiences with that. So that type of honest dialogue often draws the students into something, because they say, hey, you're talking my lived experience here, so I want to check out more about that. Contact with admitted low-income first-gen students on their first trip to campus and pre-college and freshman orientation activity. Oh, okay. We talk about learning abroad right away at our TRIO orientation. So it's just really important from day one. We're trying to change the narrative that this is something that all college students do and that they should very much do. I take the time as an instructor for one of these courses to talk to parents. I know a lot of faculty don't want to deal with it. They just want to teach their abroad course. Well, again, what are you going to do to make sure that they can go? So I do this stuff. I will invite parents to my office if they want to talk about my South African course, and I'll make the time to do it. Including students in the recruitment, orientation and stuff, all of my students come back as teachers for my new pre-departure meetings. So they are the experts of the program, and I just kind of step back and they do a piece on privilege abroad, and it's pretty cool. making real connections with the places on campus where you find these students. So, hanging out with Paul over at MK, if you're instructing these courses or you want to put together these courses. Be prepared to have a conversation about issues that might come up that are due to class, race, poverty. You got to be ready to have those conversations. Make time for students and the family. Network with your peers who work with low-income first-gen students on a daily basis. Some of the other faculty who have been really successful have spent time in our office. Mark is a family member of TRIO, and he's very successful in getting TRIO students to apply to his course. That's that warm referral. If he's in our office and he's hanging out and we're like, hey guys, did you meet Mark? He's nuts. They want to go meet Mark, and they meet Mark, and Mark's a little nuts, and they kind of like him, and they're like, oh, all right, this sounds cool. Walking them through the whole application process, financial process, that's the navigation piece. We have to do the work in order to make sure that it's an equal opportunity. Create websites and other resources out there to highlight these issues. This is my favorite one. Finally, seek to bulldoze the institutional barriers that stand in the way of our students learning abroad, confirmation fees, unfair scholarship process, dishonest marketing, asking them to squeeze their budget, save for cosmetic diversity work rather than deep social justice work that needs to happen in order for this to really matter and make a difference. So that's that. I don't know if you've all seen the Colbert video of the McDonald's budget. Have you all seen that? This is what our students deal with daily. Do you want to see it?
Yeah.
And then we'll end on that. I just think it's a great example of kind of what higher ed does. Why can't I go? Oh, here. Volume though.
You might have to turn.
They used to be playing like hills.
Yeah, it's probably just going to play from the computer.
Nation, I've always been suspicious of the minimum wage. I've said it before. Minimum is a misnomer. $7.25. I can think of wages a lot lower. $3.28. $1.19. A pat on the back and a handful of mints. There are literally dozens of other things you could give them. A barn owl. And when it comes to opposing the minimum wage, I'm in good company with guys who own companies. For example, billionaire industrialist and my future face twin, Charles Koch. In an interview with the Wichita Eagle, the Cube Koch said he wants to eliminate the minimum wage because it creates a culture of dependency and keeps people with limited capital from starting their own business. He is right. Having to pay your employees really hurts small business. I mean, look at our nation's forefathers. Many arrived with nothing but the blouse on their back, but thanks to no minimum wage, they started a booming cotton industry. But just try explaining macroeconomics to the 10.4 million working poor. Some of them actually think the minimum wage is too low, especially the 4 million who work in fast food. Jim?
Since early April, there have been protests by fast food workers in 7 cities.
We can't afford to live on what we make.
A coalition of groups calling themselves D15 helped organize this protest and others at McDonald's, Burger King, Domino's, and other top chains to demand $15 an hour instead of $7.40.
$15 an hour? That'd make the guy at Fry Station the richest man in Detroit. I say... I say the problem isn't that the minimum wage is too low, it's that the poorers out there don't know how to handle their cash.
Many of the poor will use the money irresponsibly.
There is a reason for poverty in America. It's usually personal responsibility. Poverty is not just an economic problem. It is a social problem and a social responsibility problem, personal responsibility problem. You know that's true. Yes, it doesn't matter how little you are paid. If you're poor, it's your fault. I get that. But then again, I'm not poor. And if I were, I wouldn't be. Because I would turn being poor into an opportunity. Okay? Trademark. And McDonald's agrees with me. Instead of raising salaries, they're giving their workers something more valuable than money. A website.
If there's anything we've learned in these tough economic times, it's to budget and save for the future, right? Well, McDonald's is helping its employees by giving them an example of how to do just that on their limited salaries.
A website launched by the fast food chain called Practical Money Skills for Life. The site breaks down how a worker can make ends meet on a McDonald's salary.
Yes, McDonald's is helping employees make ends meet, not to be confused with their delicious burger recipe, which makes end meet. And take a look at their McNuggets of McWisdom. McJam.
Even small things add up to a lot of money over time. Think of it this way. Let's say you go to the convenience store every day for gum or even a candy bar. It's only $1, right? Well, if you multiply that dollar a day times 365 days a year, you're spending $365 a year on snacks alone.
Hold on 1 second, this thing got very nice.
Our students hear this type of stuff all the time.
Times 1. Yeah, it checks out. Now, folks, the heart of the program is this downloadable budget journal workers can use to track their spending.
Writing down a journal of your daily spending will help you understand where your money goes. You might say it's too much trouble to write down everything you spend, but before you say that, give it a try. Try it for 1 week and see if you notice a difference in your spending. Then try it for at least a month to see that you really will spend less.
Then try a year. Then try a decade. Then 50 years. Then ask yourself, why am I still working at McDonald's? I'm 86 years old. All you have to do is follow their sample monthly budget, where they estimate you will spend $600 on rent, $100 on cable and phone, and $0 on eating. No problem. Just accumulate a warming layer of fat on your body, like this employee. And other parts of their sample budget are equally helpful. For health insurance, they budget $20. Now, the cheapest McDonald's health plan is $50, but for $20, you can get a tourniquet, a bottle of nitrate, and a white steak. Now, you might be saying to yourself, Stephen, I can't do all this on a McDonald's salary. Well, that's where you're right, because the budget assumes you're working a second job, which of course won't be easy, but that does mean 2 Christmas parties. Just be sure to fill your pockets with shrimp and maybe a can of Snorro, because remember, you have to eat. Now, after all the expenses have been paid, you're still left with $800 in monthly spending money for odds and ends like clothing, food, and gasoline. Luckily, your polyester McDonald's uniform qualifies as all 3. So, if you work 2 jobs at 75 hours a week and follow this budget to the letter, McDonald's non-bindingly promises you'll have $100 for savings a month. Because McDonald's says, quote, you can have almost anything you want as long as you plan ahead and save for it, unless the thing you want is money. So, stop complaining, 4 million fast food workers. McDonald's may have net a profit last quarter of $1.39 billion, but you get a fair wage plus all the grease you can breathe. For Pete's sake, an employee at a Chicago McDonald's makes $8.25 an hour. The CEO of McDonald's only makes $875 million a year. I mean, $8.25, $8.75, they're practically the same if you don't care about math. And McDonald's budget proves they don't. We'll be right back.
I just like to little humor, but true. A lot of our students are just told to save and do things differently because it's their problem that they're not going abroad. So it's just kind of a narrative flip, anyways. If Lindsay can give me email addresses to folks that were here, I will send out this PowerPoint, and I have a few other documents too about how to help students that are permanent resident students and obtaining visas and that type of stuff too. So I can send anything out. And there's a couple articles written by TRIO professionals nationwide about study abroad for TRIO students and stuff like that too. If you want it, I can send it out. So yeah, I'm 5 minutes over.
One more thing.
Oh, clapping!
And we filmed it and we're gonna put it on our website